The other day, one of my coaches asked me a question and it just stopped me right in my tracks. And the question that my coach asked me, in the 13 years that I was at the FBI, what's something psychological that I realized about people that's helped me in my business? Now, we were on a group coaching call, and when he asked me that, the whole Zoom room just went quiet. And this is one of those questions I didn't want to just blurt out the first answer that came to mind just to fill up space. This was a golden question, and it deserved a pretty insightful answer. But what came up and what hit me so hard was this: the secrets. The secrets that we keep impact us deeply because we all have secrets. It's the stuff that no one knows about. These are secrets that are locked up so tight inside. They are showing up in places you would never expect, including how we're actually eating these secrets alive. And maybe you're listening right now and you're thinking, sure, I've got a few things I don't talk about, but really not a big deal, or they're so far in the past. But what if they are a big deal? What if the stuff that you've locked away, what if it's still running the show? And not just in your head, but also in your habits. And that's what I want to talk about today. When I was at the FBI, we kept a lot of secrets. Obviously, we see things, we hear things, we do things, and we just stuff it down because, national security. Well, what made this even crazier was that my ex-husband was a Green Beret and he had worked at the Pentagon. So we'd have dinner every night and we had this dance because we could talk about, water cooler, office stuff, or just kind of like awesome gossip stuff. But we couldn't actually talk about our day. We couldn't actually talk about what we did. And we thought this was normal because this is the culture of the DC power couple. It was some kind of status symbol. But in reality, it's just what we did. We had clearances that we needed to uphold. We had an oath of office that we had to keep. All right, enough about that. I just wanted to make the segue since that was a part of the question. So let's get into how these secrets impact you. I'm a mentor for Go Girls Go, which is like Girls on the Run. You may have heard of that one. Same thing. So we've got 36 4th and 5th grade girls after school. Now, the first part of the session, we do some mentoring with them inside. And then the second part, we go outside and we run with them. And then at the end, we had this 5K race with all the girls. Well, this week's topic, it was around bullying. And I shared my bullying story with the girls. I shared with them how I was the second youngest in my class, how I was shorter than all of the other kids, and I was a little chunkier, which, ironically, looking back at the pictures, it's totally normal weight today. But, back in the 70s, all the kids were really thin. And I was also a really slow runner. So starting in 1st grade, so we would play the game tag at recess. And I was always it, tag you're it. I was always it because I was the slowest kid and I could never catch anyone. Well, some 1st grade snot-nosed little jerky jerk decided to start calling me it because I was always it and he thought it was funny. Well, then some more snot-nosed little jerky jerks joined the fun. And for some of these jerky jerks, that nickname in 1st grade, it stayed with me until 12th grade graduation, literally until I graduated high school. So I'm sharing this story with the girls. And you could have heard a pin drop when I shared my story. This is a class of 30-some hyperactive, hormonal 4th and 5th grade girls. They were silent. And we talked about how it made me feel. And, asked them questions like, is this kind of name calling acceptable? The lesson was about bullying. Well, the delivery was fine. I've done the work. I've shared the story plenty of times. But I wasn't prepared for what happened next. Because I told them how after my first time mentoring with them, I went home and I actually cried. And they were happy tears, but I still cried a little bit because they are so supportive of each other. At the end, they do this human tunnel thing and the girls run through it and they cheer for each other and then they just do this cheer. I mean, they genuinely support each other. They genuinely cheer each other on. So as I'm sharing this with them, as I'm telling them how I got teary-eyed as I was thinking about this, I was getting teary-eyed in that present moment, sharing it with them. And I told them, I said, they get to experience something that I never had when I was in elementary school. And I told them how proud of them I was. Now, if you're listening and this is hitting a little close to home, I mean, maybe you didn't feel supported by family or friends growing up, or maybe even now you're not feeling supported. I want to pause for a moment and recognize you. I want to say how proud I am of you for showing up for yourself by taking the time to listen to this episode. And the fact that you're here, it tells me that you are ready to understand yourself more deeply. And that matters more than you'll ever know. Here's the thing. Everyone likes to point the finger at childhood trauma. Big T trauma, little t trauma. Therapists classify these as ACE, adverse childhood events. And yes, 100%. Childhood trauma, any kind of trauma, doesn't even have to be childhood, any kind of trauma is legitimate and it impacts us deeply. But the way that I look at this, I look at it a little differently because it is more complex, because it's more intertwined than we think. And here's why. It's because every second of every day, our five senses, they are taking in our world. That's a lot for our brain to process. We have a part of our brain, and it's called the Reticular Activating System. Reticular Activating System. We call it the RAS for short. Well, how it works, how the RAS works, how the Reticular Activating System works, is that we tell our brain what to focus on. Now, if you think about this from just a primitive survival perspective, you're out in the wilderness. The only two things that you care about, you want food/water and you want safety. You want to stay alive, which is basically survival. So you are going to be hyper alert to anything that falls into the category of food and safety. You need something to eat and you need to make sure that something is not going to eat you. Everything else is not important. Well, our modern day brain operates the same way. Let's use my bullying example to really help paint the picture for you. And this is where I'm going to poke holes in the quote unquote, it's only about trauma theory that you've probably heard that's shared everywhere. As a child, the bullying made me feel less than, not worthy. My self-esteem took a hit. And I needed to find that value and that worthiness somewhere. And I needed to prove to my peers that I was better than just being called it. How we perceive ourselves drives our behavior. So how did this manifest? I wanted to be the smartest in my class. I actually remember in second grade, I wanted to be the first kid to learn how to spell Pennsylvania. Grew up in Pennsylvania, currently live in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a big word for a second grader to spell. I wanted to be the first second grader to spell Pennsylvania. And I did. And I didn't just read books. I had to read bigger books than the kids in the class. So my value came from not just being smart, but smarter than everyone else. Now, add in layers that a child does not have the same kind of coping mechanism as adults. Do you want to know what else made me feel good as a child? Cookies, candy, ice cream, my mom's brownies, my mom's pudding pie. Okay, back to our reticular activating system. Our brain is creating a path in the woods. And this path, it is years and it is decades of these layers and layers and layers on top of each other. These layers solidify how you respond to the world around you. How we perceive ourselves drives our behavior. So if my primary feeling is that I don't fit in, The reticular activating system, the RAS, it is going to be laser focused on situations where I don't fit in. And then that is going to manifest in things like being a people pleaser, putting my needs to the bottom of the list, saying yes when my boss asked me to stay late at work, or when my husband asked me to grab him a beer after I just sat down on the couch. If my primary feeling is that I have to be smart, I have to get straight A's to receive worth, well, guess what? I'm going to walk around life being laser focused on how I can prove how smart I am. And then that's going to manifest in things like being a high achiever, being a perfectionist, procrastinating because I don't know how to do something, or I know it's not going to meet my standards, or even things like being busy all of the time. So now you've got all of these examples of where your needs aren't being met, and your brain is seeking comfort. Your brain is literally requiring you to meet your needs. So what happens now? You turn to food for comfort. Your RAS is tagging everything in your environment that matches your unmet needs. So how does this play out in real life? Okay, let's give a for instance. Let's say you had a hard day at work. You come home. Your spouse or your kids brought home cupcakes, and those cupcakes are sitting on the counter. Despite you telling them, hey, I'm on a diet, and asking them not to bring any junk food in the house. Well, what happens next? Those cupcakes, they are all you can think about. The thoughts are obtrusive. They are obsessive. You are laser focused on those cupcakes. It is like something came over you and you can't control it. So you try to talk yourself out of it. But the next thing you know, you've inhaled not just one, but 2 or 3 of them. And then what happens next? You've got guilt. You've got the shame. And then what happens next? Because of the guilt and the shame, you scream to your spouse or your kid, get into the kitchen now. You yell at them because they brought cupcakes home. You're like, I specifically told you, don't bring anything into the house, and you still did. You never listened to me. And you are standing in that kitchen having a midlife mom-style meltdown. Maybe you've done this exact same thing. Or maybe your version, maybe it's not yelling. Maybe it's going quiet. Maybe it's slamming the cabinet or a door or just pulling away. And it's feeling that mix of guilt and rage. And then circling back to the cupcakes because you're feeling the guilt and the rage. And those cupcakes, they're the only ones who get you. This pattern is not your fault. It's because your RAS tagged those cupcakes as the one and only source to give you comfort after your unmet need of feeling tired and overwhelmed from a long day at work. There is no logic, no willpower, no mind over matter, no intuitive eating, no everything in moderation that is ever going to win against this primal force that has been ingrained in your brain for decades. Our RAS is always proving us right. All right, you know how you start your day, and let's say you're running late and now you can't find your keys and you're stuck in traffic and your boss yells at you and you're like, oh my goodness, it has just been one sucky thing after another. This day is the worst. Well, this is exactly what our brain's doing. So you're saying to yourself, this is a crappy day. So your brain is now on a mission. You're literally telling your brain, go on a scavenger hunt. Go look for all of the crappy things. So your RAS is like a dog bringing you its favorite toy to play with. Here you go, here you go, here you go, here you go. Look how good I did. Look how good I did. Give me a treat, give me a treat. And then comes the rationalization reflex. This is our brain's way of reducing that discomfort, aka the dissonance, and we're making excuses. We're coming up with rational lies and justifications because that keeps us safe. Even though we know they're not true. What does that look like? One bite of cake won't kill me. It's been a hard day. I deserve a treat. I'll start back up on Monday. Everything in moderation, which then triggers learned helplessness. So then we say things like, I just can't help myself. This is just what happens in midlife, or this is just what getting older looks like, or I have fat genes, or I've always been this way, which then puts us into this mode of saying that we want to fix the problem. We want to do it, but we're not actually serious about doing it. So we go on this diet, we dread eating the sad little salad, the diet becomes too hard to keep up, and we quit. And this isn't just our brain. There is a phenomenal book out there. It's called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's by Bessel van der Kolk, MD. The book is groundbreaking. Dr. van der Kolk explains how trauma literally rewires the body and the brain. And especially we're looking at areas that manage fear and memory, emotional regulation, how it can change how the nervous system operates long term, unless it is processed or healed. This is one of the most respected and referenced trauma books ever written. Now, most people think that they understand trauma, the big T, the little t, as we call it. But what they don't realize is that it's not just about bad memories, but your body actually holds on to these memories. And then these memories are going to continue to pop up when you're triggered. It's just like a game of whack-a-mole. And what most people don't know, what Dr. van der Kolk explains, is that trauma is stored in the body. So it's not just that your brain gets rewired, it's also your gut, your muscles, your hormones. And it manifests in things like inflammation, digestive issues, autoimmune diseases, other chronic illnesses. It's how you think, it's how you act, and yes, how you eat. Okay, back to secrets. We all have secrets. So let's say it's an adverse childhood experience or some kind of traumatic event. So we hold that secret in. And maybe a few close people know, but for the most part, it's a secret. And then we have these big, uncomfortable emotions that are attached to that secret. Shame, unworthiness, not feeling valued or loved, anger, resentment, bitterness, grief. And then we keep these emotions secret because we don't know what to do with them. We don't know how to process them. Or we're afraid of rejection or judgment. Or we're taught not to express our feelings, aka be the good girl, don't be dramatic. We're told we're just too much, tone it down. Or we've internalized this shame around feeling these emotions. And then we turn to food to help us cope with the emotions. Food becomes the friend that listens. Food becomes the comfort that does not judge. Food is the one thing that gives us control. And it feels so good in that moment because it helps us to know. But we know that eating our feelings, it's not really acceptable behavior by society. So then we hide the type of comfort food we eat. We hide the volume of food that we eat. We hide how much food we eat. And because we're keeping this secret, we have an additional layer of shame and guilt. And we carry these patterns in our brain like a well-worn path. Our reticular activating system is laser focused to continue to put these patterns in front of us. Our RAS is constantly on that scavenger hunt. And then the body keeps score. We've gained weight, and now despite our best efforts, it's not coming off. This, my friend, this is the secret shame cycle. And it's one of the deepest patterns that we carry with us. It's why the most intelligent, smart, successful, capable women still feel out of control with food. Because they're not battling calories. They are battling secrets. And right now, you might be nodding along because this is you. You're keeping it together in public, but when that door closes, the mask comes off and the snacks come out. Not because you're weak, but because those secrets, they weigh more than willpower will ever carry. So I've been watching Friends for the third time now, just one of the best series ever. And I was at the end of season 4. Now, this was the I, Ross, take the Rachel episode. Absolutely epic. Well, it's the second to the last episode of the season. But here's what really got to me, was because in the opening scene, I immediately noticed how healthy Matthew Perry looked, and especially compared to season 2 and 3 and 4. He had this glow up. His face had color to it. He had put on some weight in a good way. His smile was bigger. His eyes had that classic Matthew Perry sparkle. He just looked healthy. Now, watching Friends now, and obviously knowing, what we all know about his past and his demons and the struggle with all the painkillers, and especially in those early seasons, I could feel it. Like, he's the funniest guy in the room. But he was carrying this pain that was so heavy that years later it eventually broke him. And unless you knew about it, you would never in a million years watching the show, you could never guess that this is what's going on behind the scenes, because that is how secrets work. They are a master of disguise. Emotional eating, it's not about the food. It is what we are hiding. It's what we are carrying in silence. We smile, we perform, we do the things we're supposed to do. We hold it together. We Chandler Bing our way through life, the jokes, the sarcasm, the productivity, the busyness. Well, there's something so much deeper going on beneath the surface. Secrets weigh more than calories ever can. And whether it's addiction or shame or fear of being too much or fear of not being enough or just simply the exhaustion of pretending that everything is fine, those unspoken truths, they have to come out somewhere. They need a release. And the fact that you're listening to this episode, that release is probably going to be food. But food is just the messenger. And Matthew Perry is a real and raw mirror of this truth, because he kept people laughing while he was battling demons that no one else could see. Because that is what we do when we are wired to survive. When something real, when it finally breaks through, when we can stop pretending, we can stop hiding, we can just let ourselves be seen, that changes the storyline. It changes everything for us. And just like Chandler, you are not supposed to carry this alone. You're not meant to hide the truth of who you are just to be lovable. And you're definitely not meant to live in the shadows of your own story. But when you can show up, and you show up honestly, truly true to yourself, and even if it's just once, it creates a ripple. People respond. Things shift. And that's the power of you being you. That's the power of you being real. And that's the beginning of letting go. If this episode hit home in any capacity, whether it's the bullying, the cupcake, the Chandler Bing sarcasm, I want you to know something. You're not broken. You're not failing. You're just carrying around too much weight. And I'm not talking about the weight on your body. It's the weight of being the strong one, the weight of being the smart one, the pretty one, the one who holds it all together. And food is not your failure. Food is just that one moment where you stop performing so that you can feel good. In the 13 years when I was at the FBI, what's something psychological that I realized about people that's helped me in my business? The secrets. The secrets that we keep impact us deeply. And many of us are eating those secrets alive. This is your invitation to stop mistaking discipline for healing, to stop trying to shrink about that part of you that needs to be seen. And when you're ready to drop the mindless snacking, the obsession around food, the emotional eating, the stress eating, and I'll be there. Because when you can get to the other side of the food noise and the obsession, you are going to feel so much lighter and brighter, like this huge weight has finally been lifted from your shoulders. So it is time to drop the mask, to stop performing, to finally let go. And my program, the Break Emotional Eating Accelerator, it is fast, it is focused, and it is an affordable way to get those wins, to help you get there. You can go through the program as is, or if you're already working with a coach or a nutritionist on weight loss, it's not going to be just an accelerator. It is going to be what actually makes this time sustainable. This is your secret weapon, because you aren't meant to carry the secret shame cycle alone, and you're not meant to carry this forever. And promise me this, that knowing what you know now, you're going to give yourself a little more compassion. So now that you've uncovered the weight behind the weight and realize that it's not just about the food, but about what you've been carrying, you might be thinking, okay, Holly, I get it. I'm ready to stop hiding, but I don't even know where to start anymore. And that, my friend, is exactly what we're diving into next week. So hit that follow button so you don't miss the episode. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week.